Hi, my name is Gina Buchholz, and I'm one of the advisors at 401k Plan Professionals. Thank you for joining me for this legislative update from Capitol Hill. Every July, I have the opportunity to join my fellow retirement plan advisors from across the country to meet with our state representatives and legislators to really promote meaningful retirement plan changes. A couple of things that we talked about on Capitol Hill this year includes really reinforcing how much workers depend on these 401k plans. There's been some recent press that 401k plans are really only benefiting the wealthy, and that's just not true. So we shared some factual data that shows how many middle to moderate Americans really depend on these 401k plans. Another thing we talked about was a recent piece of legislation that was introduced in 2023 called the Retirement Savings for Americans Act. And lastly, one other important point that we talked about was another piece of legislation that was introduced that would mandate a federal automatic IRA for all employers across the US. So let me tell you a little bit about each of these things that we talked about. First of all, debunking the myth that only the wealthy benefit from 401k plans. That's just simply not true. Tens of millions of moderate to middle income Americans really depend on the 401k to save for retirement. Statistically, over 60% of those 401k plan participants earn less than $100,000 a year. And recent studies also show that the majority of these workers are only saving because they have access to an employer-sponsored 401k. And interestingly, workers are 15 times more likely to save for retirement if they have access to that employer-sponsored retirement plan. So these plans are very effective. They're working. We're getting high participation rates. We're getting high savings rates. A lot has to do with the auto features that we've been implementing, but they are effective and they are working. Here's some other data that we shared with our state legislators. Again, just reinforcing that over 60% of participants earn less than $100,000 a year, and only 11% earn over $200,000. And then you can see the graphics at the bottom. This kind of separates those moderate to middle income workers, under 30,000, those who make between 30 and 50,000, and those who make between 50 and 100,000. And resoundingly, you can see, the percentage of workers really rely on payroll deduction to save for retirement. The majority of them also view the tax benefits very favorably. And again, a very high percentage of them state that they're only saving because they have access to that employer-sponsored retirement plan. So we're really happy with all the work that we have done to really increase coverage for all Americans. And these 401k plans are meaningful and not just to wealthy Americans. So that was some information that we shared with our legislators. Another piece of legislation that we wanted to talk a little bit about was a bill that was introduced in 2023 by Senator Hickenlooper, who's a Democrat in Colorado. It's called the Retirement Savings for Americans Act. The American Retirement Association, actually, we oppose this act. It is a federally funded retirement program. And essentially how it would work is it would be a government program, a government retirement savings program that would give a 1% contribution to all Americans and then an additional match on top of that. It would be funded by the US government, and we feel that it would really jeopardize the 401k plans. We don't want employers who have very generous 401k plans, who have those high participation rates, high savings rates. We don't want them to abandon these 401k plans for another federally sponsored retirement plan. There's also a lot of duplication. We already have a federal retirement program called Social Security. A lot of Americans really depend on Social Security. Many Americans are concerned about its solvency and how long it'll be around and what benefits it'll provide. So we feel that more time and effort should be put into Social Security and keeping that plan safe and secure and solvent for many decades to come, rather than creating another federally sponsored retirement plan that would work in tandem with Social Security. So there's that concern as well. Obviously, the costs of funding it is a bit of a concern. We don't want them to lower contribution limits. And also 401k plans have some consumer protections that a government plan would not. So 401k plans, they are governed by RSAA, which is an enormous piece of legislation that protects 401k plan participants. We certainly don't want to lose that, and all of the benefits that they get with the 401k, including advisor support, education, and financial wellness. So again, we've made great strides in the 401k plan space. Employers are doing a fantastic job with those 401k plans. We certainly don't want to jeopardize or abandon those in favor of a second federally sponsored retirement plan. So that was one thing we talked a lot about as well. And lastly, the third point that we really talked about was promoting an automatic IRA. So this would be a mandated IRA, automatic IRA, that we feel would really close America's retirement plan coverage gap. And we do strongly support this act. Essentially, it would require employers with more than 10 employees that do not currently sponsor an employer-sponsored plan to automatically enroll their employees in an IRA. There would be no cost to the small business. In fact, the act actually even includes a tax credit of $500 per year for 3 years. And there's already a framework in place because there are a number of states that have already enacted a mandatory IRA. I live in the state of Minnesota, and effective in 2025, Minnesota's mandate will also have this IRA. What we are hearing from states that have enacted mandatory IRAs that automatically enroll employees is that it's easy, it's effective, and it's working. And it's also encouraging these small employers to maybe set up a 401k. So if they don't want to use the automatic IRA, it's giving them an opportunity to start exploring setting up their own 401k, which might be more generous, offering a match and other type of employer contributions. So it's really working. It's kind of closing that coverage gap, and it's getting more Americans access to a retirement savings plan program. So that is something that we certainly are promoting. Again, these acts are just proposals right now, things we're talking to Congress about, but that was really the 3 key points that we talked to our legislators about this year. Again, if you have any questions, of course, reach out to our team. Again, my name's Gina, and along with my colleagues, Jenna, Jessica, and Virginia, we're always happy to help answer any questions you have about this or anything else about your employer-sponsored retirement plan. Thank you. I appreciate you joining me today.